state a disclaimer. I want to make sure everybody knows that I am not affiliated with the Department of Veterans Affairs. I do not advise or represent veterans. All my videos are just educational videos, but I still request that people go out and still do their own research, because VA regulations and policies, they can change on a daily basis. And if you're looking for representation, there's a lot of law firms and VSOs, veteran service organizations out there that can help you for free. So today, like I said, I'm doing another live stream just to talk about some things that I've been seeing that's trending with the Department of Veterans Affairs and as it pertains to the claims process. So just want to give a shout out to some people. I see Comrade Craig here. We got St. Lou. We got ATX Patriots. Hey, it was good chatting with you today. Hopefully don't keep you up too late. I know you got to get those production points in the morning. David Rodriguez. Hey, how we doing? Andrew Lewis, Preston Bowden, Robert Hollis, Stephen Bowering. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I see you there, Paratrooper Girl. And always remember, Paratrooper Girl, first calf leads the way, okay? I know you're hardcore airborne, but first, it's all about first calf. All right, we got Ray Blackman, certified public accountant. How we doing today? So what I want to start with, just doing a quick recap over last month. Some things I talked about. One of the things I talked about last month was the 5 ways of service connection. I talk to a lot of veterans on a daily basis in my live training, and even in the comments of the YouTube section of my YouTube channel, videos that I do. And it's still apparent that a lot of veterans are not grasping the 5 ways of service connection. They'll say, oh, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. And I'll ask, under the 5 ways of service connection, what you're trying to claim, which one does it fall? And they'll say, well, what are you talking about? I don't know. I'm just going to submit a medical opinion by itself and let that ride. So again, at the end of the day, go back and watch a lot of my videos. It's a lot of good educational information, but understand that if I did a video, maybe let's say back in February, check the description section, hit that show more link, and sometimes I'll put the reference or the M21 policy reference in there, or the 38 CFR, and make sure you Google it and look at it, because it could have changed. A lot of times I'll do an updated video to go through a change or something like that, just to keep everybody updated. But it's a lot of things that has been changing within the VA that I've seen here lately. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit later. But again, the 5 ways of service connection. Okay. I get a lot of comments and people say, I've seen all your videos. I've seen all your videos. And get into the conversation, and it's apparent that you hadn't seen all the videos. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to go live next month. I'm not going to do a live stream. What I'm going to do, I'm going to have a contest, and I'm going to open it up to about maybe 30, 40 vets, and I'm going to give away a prize. I'm not going to say what that prize is, but you're going to register for the event, and then I'm going to use a program or software or website called Kahoot, and I'm going to ask questions as it pertains to some of the videos that I did. And then I'm going to name the winner. Everybody's going to name and know who the winner is, but it's going to be multiple choice. But I'm going to tell you, one of the questions is going to be on there. What are the 5 ways of service connection? That's definitely going to be on there. Okay. I'm not going to say what else, but it's going to be topics concerning topics that I've discussed in my previous YouTube videos. Okay. So I want to test people's knowledge and just see where they're at with their knowledge base as it pertains to the claims process. Okay. Another thing that I talked about was a summary breakdown letter. Okay. A lot of people don't know what their service connected for or the percentage. The summary breakdown letter will tell you. Now, you can look at benefits, and any benefits will tell you, but on the summary breakdown letter, it will give you the diagnostic code. Okay. And on that diagnostic code, there's a diagnostic code is a 4-digit code. And on that 4-digit code, you can Google it and see exactly the criteria for the increase in that condition that you're service connected for, or if you're going after a service connected condition, then you can see what the criteria is. So when you get to that CMP exam, you know exactly, hey, I know which criteria, the percentage I know I fall under. Okay. So we talked about that. And also in my description section of most of my videos, I put what I used, the link to the form that I use and the verbiage, or how to request a summary breakdown letter. That's what I put in there. So a lot of people don't hit that show more button. Go there and you'll see exactly. I'll tell you exactly what I did of how to I got mine, and you can get yours. So you definitely want that to be a part of your that VA claim packet right there. Okay, you got to build your own if you don't have your CD already. Okay, another thing I talked about is the caregiver program. The caregiver program is not through the benefit administration side, but it's through the healthcare side. All right, so you have to go through your team or your social worker on your team for your doctor, but it's paid to the spouse. And if you look in the description section of my last live video, I left a link to that. So if you definitely feel you meet that requirement, you can click on that link and it'll show you all the requirements. Okay. Okay, we got a special guest in the house. I see you, Patriot. I may call on you to ask you a question. So if that's okay, just let me know. All right. Another thing I talked about is DBQs, and I'm going to talk about a little bit more about that as well. I know I get a lot of comments and people say, hey, they're no longer using them and things of that nature. And I did some videos on it. So I want to talk about that a little bit tonight to let you know what I've been seeing that has been trending through the VA and the difference, the inconsistency amongst RVSRs as it pertains to DBQs and what I've been seeing as I've been talking to veterans, getting feedback from those veterans. So give some more shout outs here. We got Tom, the Marine vet. Okay, who else? Dale, I see you, Dale. Grasp me now with your help. Okay. Comeback Douglas. Okay. 305. I think that's 305. Comeback Douglas. All right. Patriots, it can't be any more difficult than the RVSR journeyman test. Hey, I took that test, and right after I took that test, Patriot, they said you didn't need it any longer to get your GS-12, but I definitely found it interesting. See, Hee Haw just had a CMP exam. The examiner told me she was amazed that it took long to get the case. Hey, good luck, Hee Haw. Hope you good luck with that. Oh, and I'm so sorry, Paratrooper girl just reminded me. Happy belated Veterans Day. I did a video and I uploaded yesterday, so a lot of people didn't make fun of my old old military pictures, but I just want to share that with everyone and just wish everyone a happy Veterans Day. So just like last month, if you have any questions, go ahead and just ask them, and I'll pull them up here as we go through. I'll pull them up here, and I'll go through and ask them. I'll put them up, and you know what I'm saying. I'll ask a question and I'll go through them. All right. Okay, we got Run, Kimbrough, Yo Ray CMP. Okay. All right. So the first thing we want to talk about is the Stars and Stripes article. I did a video on it. It stated that the VA was no longer doing CMP exams at the VA. Okay. And last month, I actually talked about how they were going to reopen the VA CMP office, and then a couple of days after that, they said that they weren't going to do it. It was all going to be outsourced. Now, one thing to remember about that, I think it's key, and I talked about this in the video, is if you do an exam, let's say you do an exam at a third-party contractor, QTC, LHI, something like that, or VES services. It's not always a bad thing, but this is where I think it gets sticky. Okay. if you go to that exam and you're asking for service connection, and let's just say you get a negative medical opinion, okay, and you want to fight that, you want to do a high level review. I'm old school, so if I say appeals, but it's now high level review, and you don't have a copy of your claims folder, if you submit that FOIA request to get a copy of your claims folder, it's going to take a while. And in my video, I used the example, I requested a copy of mine on CD the first week of January. Now we're already in the middle of November. Let's just say I requested it after I received a negative, a denial for service connection. I want to do a high level review. You have 365 days to do that review. I'm sorry, to submit the high level review before it expires, and you still don't have a copy of it. Now, when you do an exam through a third party contractor, you can't pull that up in My Healthy Vet. The only way you can get it is submitting a FOIA request to the VA, unless it's another way that I'm familiar with. Okay, and if it takes that long, your appeal rights could be close to expiring. Okay, so you definitely want to keep that in mind. And if you know that you have a rating decision, or you do a CMP exam, you might want to go ahead and submit that FOIA request, because if you want to fight that at a high level review or appeal, you want to have that information in front of you. You want it to be a part of your claim file that you have, like I have here. And I shared in other videos how I won everything that I appealed because I had a copy. I built a copy of my own claim folder. And back then, you could only go to it wasn't any third party contractor. So I could go to the release of information office at the VA, and they could download it, okay, and give it to me. All right. So I just want to make that everybody aware of that. Okay. So I'll go ahead and I'll read through, see if we got any questions. John Thompson, hello, thanks for doing tonight's live. Hey, no problem. It's my pleasure. Just want to make sure I educate as many vets as I can on this process. Fred Walker, go Army, I hear you. Private medical evidence is the best. Vets disability claims, private medical evidence is the best. And I agree, because I had a lot of private medical evidence just because I got fed up with my a couple of CMP exams that I had. It didn't go well at all. The examiners didn't list anything that I stated, and it was just real bad. So yeah, definitely, if you got some private medical evidence, but depending on what that private medical evidence is. See, a lot of vets, they'll go and they'll get 1,000 pages of private medical evidence, and they'll send it all to the VA. Got to understand, these VA employees on quotas, okay? And the quotas constantly change, and they're going through this information really, really, really fast. So you want to make sure you do your due diligence and go through it and maybe help them out and submit exactly what you need. Okay. Let's see. Got my C file in 16 months. Wow, that is definitely a long time to be waiting on your claims file. But I'm glad you do. You finally you did get it. DBQs, know the VA changes story. Comeback Douglas say change the story every 3 minutes, maybe every 2 minutes. Got a C file. Okay. Then once again, YouTube, man. Thanks, Dwayne. Michael Perry, no problem. Lil Rock, go Mizzou. Lil Rock, I see you. How long? Let's see if I can pin this question. Okay. He also says, how long after CMP exam does it take VA to decide? That depends. They use a portal, a queue, the national work queue is what they call it. And it depends. It's no set time. I've seen veterans have a CMP exam and, find out they get a rating decision the same week, and it may take some veterans sometimes a month or two. So I don't think there's no set time, but it depends on, I think it depends a lot on which regional office gets it and what their priorities are. But I can tell you this now, opposed to 10 years ago, it's a lot faster. I think my first claim in '09, I had my CMP exam in March, mid March, and I got my rating the first week of first week of June. I don't think they're taking that long, but I have seen some to take that long. But the majority of the time, they go a lot faster. You get a rating decision back a lot faster. Okay, let's see what other questions we have. MA, I have a CMP exam for sleep apnea secondary to PTSD. Do you have any advice on getting this approved by getting a positive opinion from the CMP examiner? All I need is a positive opinion. I tell you what, good luck with that. The entire time I was rating, I seen one positive opinion come back for sleep apnea secondary to PTSD. In large part, you're dealing with a respiratory condition and one is a mental. Now, I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm not saying that it can't happen. But again, I look at CMP exams like job interviews. When you go in there, you gotta sell it. Not saying you have to lie or anything like that, but you have to express how you feel to make that correlation between the two, if that makes sense. Okay. So it just, like I said, one time out of 10 years, 10 plus years of rating that I've seen one vet get it. Not saying that it can't be done, but I do think there's a slim chance, but you have to go in there and tell that examiner and make that connection between the two. Okay. Let's see. Tom Marine vet, in 35 years. Yeah, it definitely could be frustrating. I'm trying to go through these, so just give me a couple of minutes. I want to make sure get as many questions as I can. Talk about my convo, and then I was internal use only expiration date. Be a little bit more specific. I'll come back, Douglas. I know. I'm thinking you're saying the conversation that you and I had a little bit earlier about the DBQs, the internal use only DBQs. Let me pull it. If it's VA, my claim was remanded from VBA appeals. I received the SSOC denied. What's next? Beverly, when you get denied at the BVA, the options that you have, obviously when you get denied, you can do a supplemental claim. And if you do a supplemental claim, you need new evidence. They used to call it new and material evidence. Now they call it new and relevant evidence. So that's an option you have as a veteran to go back and do a supplemental claim. But again, when you get that SSOC, you have to look at the entire picture. One, starting with the 5 ways to service connection. And I did 5 videos on how to be successful filing a VA disability compensation claims, part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I would say start with those just to see, if you missed something, if you have your previous, see a copy of your previous CMP exams, why were you given a negative opinion? Look at that. And now it's time to really dig in to all that information so you can see exactly, one, what the VA raters or judge or whomever denied you were looking at, and build a game plan from there. I think that's important because it could be something that you're possibly missing. Okay. Ron says it's been months after CMP exams and have yet to get an approval letter. Ron, did you go on benefits or even get a summary letter to see if you actually were service connected for anything, or you just still waiting on denial or approval or something like that? Let's see. Just looking at for some more questions, guys. Let me scroll back up here. and I can't pronounce the hot furnace. I'm sorry, hot furnace. Do you think it is smart to file a SMC claim since I am 100% PNT, for example, for ED? Um, Even when I became 100% PNT, I still filed a couple claims for increases, but I knew exactly, what I was going to, um, what I was filing at the time, how I was going to go through the process, and all that. So, and even if you are 100%, you know, you have to look at everything. SMCs. Again, if you're claiming the SMC, the condition that you're claiming the SMC for is a secondary. Where does it fall? You have to ask yourself that particular question. Were you previously denied? And especially if it's you're claiming a secondary to a service connected condition. It is a very common SMC claim, but again, where does it fit under the 5 ways of service connection? Thanks for pointing that out. Vets disability claims. Patriot, there's more to do to the contractor than the RO. Patriot, are you talking about as it pertains to the CMP exams? Second City CPR and safety training. Can you explain the main difference between 100% and 100% PNT? Sure. What that means, if you're just 100% and you're not PNT, that means you have more than likely you have a routine future on one of those service connected conditions. So the RVSR thinks that your condition is not static and may improve. Did a couple of videos out there, one explaining chapter 35/PNT, and I did another video as it pertains to the routine future exam. So check out both those videos. There's a lot of good information. But if you're 100, you could be 100% and not permanent total. But what that means is you have a routine future on one of those service connected conditions. If you're PNT, then that means you don't have a routine future schedule on any service connected conditions, and the VA has deemed that all your conditions are now static. Okay. 100% is temporary, 100% PNT is permanent with no future exams. Thanks, Alex. Dale says, my obstructive sleep apnea just got rated secondary to sinusitis and deviated septum with least likely is not VA with no nexus needed. Hey, good job with that. Glad to hear that. Cool, thanks. Patriot says, with PTSD and sleep apnea, you need to produce the right study submitted with your claim. Hey, good point, Patriot. If anybody knows, and that's a good point that Patriots, ATX Patriots make, and that's just not only with sleep apnea secondary to PTSD. And what he's saying is there's a lot of studies out there that possibly could have made that correlation. So, especially if you're getting a medical opinion from a private physician and they review that article and agree with it, then they could, possibly write up something for you that states that, hey, per this medical literature, it has been a correlation, so definitely that's a good point, Patriot. Let's go on through some more questions here. Thanks, Ray. Yeah, Ray Blackman said, give us a thumbs up. Only 22 thumbs up. Thanks for pointing that out, Ray. Rated 80% combined, 7%, 20%. Navy diver, Gary, you stay rated at 80% combined, 70% PTSD. I didn't know if that was a question. Let me know if it is. Federal 6, received one award letter with 2 separate awards for different dates. IU at 100%, same letter, August percent. Which one is a real rating? Federal 6, yeah, the question, what he's asking, he said, review one award letter with 2 separate awards for different dates. April 2019, award for IU at 100. On same letter, August 2019, 100%. Scheduler, PNT, which one is the real rating? I wouldn't know that. I would have to actually look at the rating. But in each one, if they, whatever effective date they assign, the RVSR should tell you exactly why they assigned that effective date. Okay. But without looking at it, it's hard to say why they went with one I'm sorry, with one effective date over another effective date. Okay. Dale says in the 94% club for a few more weeks. All right. All right. You're almost there. Um, John asked a question: is it a good thing or bad thing if the high-level HLR high-level review wording shows a difference of opinion has been asserted during the high-level review for sleep apnea? John, I'm not totally clear on that question of what you mean by that. Um, if you received uh, anything back from the high-level review, one would have to see it to figure out what the VA or that RSR, decision review officer, whoever did it, exactly what context they used in. Okay. Hot furnace, Dwayne, thanks for Hey, not a problem. I'm glad to educate veterans as much as I can on this process. Combat Douglas, Dwayne on DBQs. There is a lawyer website saying free updated DBQs. When you hit the hyperlink to download, they are non-usable, internal use only. Look like DBQs without expiration date. Yeah. One of the subscribers, Comeback Douglas, we had a conversation today. He had pointed out something, a particular website. I won't name the website, but they had DBQs. But one thing I noticed about the DBQs in the top right-hand corner, it didn't have an expiration date. It didn't have that verbiage. It's like 3 lines in the top right-hand corner. And it didn't have in the lower left-hand corner the VA form number. Okay. And maybe Patriot, if you're still on, if you were to receive a DBQ like that, how would they be looked at? I don't think it would be sufficient or actionable for rating purposes because it's technically not a VA form because it doesn't have the VA form number in the lower left-hand corner and it doesn't have the expiration date in the top right. So I don't know how the VA will look at that, but just be on the lookout for that because there's a lot of DBQs out there that have been expired, and per the M21 policy or reference, those are not actionable or sufficient for rating purposes. Okay. Thanks, Comeback Douglas, for pointing that out. Okay. Patriot, if you, ATX Patriots, if you heard that statement I just made about those DBQs, maybe you're able to shed some light on that. Thank you. Second City, okay, CPR, thank you. Dale, how long typically, okay, I think I was just asked that. Dwayne, how long typically is a high-level review process currently? I understand 120, 125 days, but do your sources say it's longer right now? I haven't talked with any previous coworkers of mine about this, but I can say this: it's a lot shorter than what the appeal process used to be. Okay, appeals used to take up to 5 or 6 years. I think they're doing them a matter of months now, but I don't know the exact time frame that they're doing it. But it's a lot faster than before. But to say exactly, how many days or how many months, but a lot of people that I've been talking to about high-level reviews, I think the average wait times that they actually waited, the veterans I've talked to, it's been only a few weeks, maybe like 6 or 7, maybe a couple of months, if that. But it depends on if you did like an informal conference. I've seen the difference, if you do an informal conference or if you don't do an informal conference. I think that when they do an informal conference and after that, it's been a matter of days that they've gotten a response in the mail. Okay. Patriot says RO has no control on when the exams come back from the contractor. That is true. I used to see that back before everything went electronic. It was times you had to reach out to the CMP office and say, "Hey, we requested this exam over a month ago. Where is it? Oh, we forgot to send it back." But it is up to the contractor to send that back unless the VA reaches out and say, hey, what's going on with this particular exam. Comeback Credit says, I don't think the VA lawyers care about laying VA policy. They want that fight, and I'm sure they will win. Okay. Let's see. Sherman Lowry says, I've seen veterans file HLR, high-level review without a CMP or DBQ on file. The rater comes back with the denial for not having a DBQ or CMP to rate. And that's definitely unfortunate if I'm reading that right, that RVSR would make that decision without that. But also keep in mind, we're doing a high-level review. Unless it's changed in the last few weeks, you can't submit any new evidence. Is the evidence that's already of record. Robert Hollis says, if I have a medical nexus from a doctor, why do I still have a CMP coming up? I know my DBQ was outdated. Well, if the DBQ was outdated, that means it wasn't sufficient for rating purposes. So in that case, if they scheduled the exam, then it's probably why they scheduled that CMP exam for you. Okay. But I could be wrong. I don't know why that VSR did it, but if it was outdated, that could be a reason why they did it. John says, high-level review shows VA is correcting an error. Yeah, I've seen that before. It could be an error where they didn't do the proper development, and they need to go out and do proper development, but they should note in that particular rating why they're doing an error. V-Rail says, what's the difference between an IMO and a Nexus letter, and can I get either from my VA doctor? Well, the second question, you have to pose that to your VA doctor if they're willing to do it. The IMO is, I just, through other veterans, just say it's an independent medical opinion. I call it just an MO, a medical opinion, and Nexus letter. But that's a good question. I created my own Nexus statement when I did my claim, which included some things. It included my name, Social Security number, the evidence that my private doctor reviewed. That's important. What did the private doctor review to come up with a medical opinion? It listed the diagnosis, it listed the medical opinion, and it listed the rationale. And a rationale is a statement as to how that doctor came up with that medical opinion, whether it be a negative or positive medical opinion. And then at the bottom, had blocks for the doctor to sign, print their name, date, and the NPI number. Okay. An independent medical opinion, I'd never seen one of those. I heard people talk about them. I take that back. I did see one, and it was just a medical opinion, a positive opinion, and the doctor gave a brief statement. Now, when I looked at it, I say this is not sufficient because it doesn't list the diagnosis, but the diagnosis was on the DBQ, but the DBQ was outdated. Okay. But it didn't list what evidence that doctor reviewed, and the rationale was really weak. The doctor didn't explain in the detail as to why they provided that medical opinion. But more so, they did not have what they reviewed. And in my monthly training, I actually list a template that I came up with that helped me be successful when I submitted a DBQ with a Nexus statement. I list show a blank one, and I actually show one that's actually completed. And I have a video out there where I did a few months back on a Nexus statement. So definitely go check that out. Okay. So I'm going to jump into the next topic, but I'm going to also continue to monitor the questions, and we'll get back to those in a minute. Okay. So DBQ updated. Had a conversation, was going back and forth with someone on comments today about DBQ. So I see that person in the thread. So if you want to share some light on this, I'll read the question or your statement. And I think the misconception one, the VA did remove their DBQs from their website. Okay, there are some DBQs that are expired. Veterans are not understanding and looking at top right hand corner to see if the DBQ is expired. Okay, I use DBQs on my claim, but this was before they removed them. Also, in one of my previous videos, I think I did last week or week before last, I show an M211 reference, a policy that was removed in the wording, but the VA removed it. Okay. Now, I know about seven to eight veterans. They all did DBQs for increase. Okay. They submitted them to the VA. I want to say about 4 of those veterans, the RVSR used it, granted the increase. That was it. Didn't never scheduled a CFP exam. The other 2 or 3, well, I take that back. 2, they did schedule an CMP exam, and the veteran refused to go. Both veterans, they refused to go. They said, go ahead and rate with the DBQ. It's sufficient for rating purposes. They got the increase. The last veteran, they're fighting it. Okay. They're in the process of fighting it. But that just goes to show the inconsistency amongst RVSRs. You have some RVSRs utilizing the DBQ as long as it is actionable and sufficient for rating purposes. Back in August, I did a training where I reviewed the PTSD review DBQ. Okay. So a gentleman that I was talking about, that I talked earlier, he brought up a good point. He stated that the doctor needs to list evidence that was reviewed if it was the claims file. Now, one thing I disagree with that is that the veteran is already service connected. I can see if the veteran was trying to get service connected, then they need to look at their claims file. But if it's an increase, if I was RVSR, then yeah, I'll go ahead and grant it because it's the residuals based on that particular exam, and the veteran is already service connected for that particular condition. Now, also what I've been seeing, especially if it pertains to other mental conditions other than PTSD review and review PTSD DBQs. A lot of RVSRs are kicking them back because it doesn't state that it was an in-person exam. Okay. So I did a video about telehealth and telemental. If your doctor is doing a DBQ for you, it cannot be done like this. A lot of veterans are still missing it. Okay. So I've been seeing DBQs where veterans are having their doctors put on there. This exam was done in person. I was talking to a veteran last week. They said, hey, Dwayne, I travel for work and I'm in different cities and my doctor is not in the same city. What if I go see the doctor and they do the DBQ in person, should they use it? I think they should, because regardless, everybody's situation is different. What if you lived across state lines and your doctor was maybe 20 miles from your house? If you lived in Mississippi and your doctor was in Alabama and it was 20 miles different. That's why I feel it's important to put on there the exam was conducted in person. And also another thing I've been seeing RVSRs, and I get this information from veterans that I talk to, and they'll share that information with me, and they'll say, well, my doctor completed the review DBQ for PTSD, and RVSR says it wasn't per the DSM-5. And they'll go back to their doctor, a psychiatrist, psychologist, and they say, well, the whole DBQ, the questions are per DSM-5. So I don't think it would hurt if the doctor, put on there, it was done in person and it was done per DSM-5. So it keeps their rater legal, okay? And knowing that, okay, well, they check the boxes on that. So if they go ahead and do the rating, they shouldn't get an error from the quality department because the doctor put that on there, okay? So that's what, I've been seeing as it pertains to the inconsistencies that I've been seeing. But again, you have to make sure if you're using that DBQ, if make sure it's actionable and sufficient for rating purposes. Okay. So I'm gonna get back into a couple more questions. So Patriot, if you don't mind, I hate to put you on the spot, but as I go through these, if you want to comment on that, maybe share some information or something like that, definitely appreciate it. VA lawyers. Let's see. Okay. Is that what? Just going through these questions. Dale says the DBQ may not be sufficient for rating purposes at Robert Howe. Okay, yes. Trust but verify. Okay, there we go. Thanks for that thumbs up, Craig. Michael Perry, he states, should I remove irrelevant info from my medical records and focus on the problem list when I submit my BDD, or just send everything? I have 3 different versions of my medical records. So, okay, Michael, you mentioned BDD. BDD, actually, that's going to be my next video I'm going to do about BDD claims, okay? But in the BDD requirement, you have to, one of those requirements, you have to submit a copy of your STRs. I don't know how they're doing that now through the whole COVID thing. So if you're going through TAPS, that might be a question that you want to ask. But either way, however you do it, you still need a copy of those STRs, regardless of where you're submitting them. All of them. Just don't pick and choose, send them, everything. All right. Now, let's just say you're not doing a BDD claim and you've been out a while and you're submitting a claim. I can't say what you should or you shouldn't do. One of the things I did submit some private evidence. I was claiming, I think, bilateral knee condition, and I had some treatment at a facility out of state. I had moved. So I reached back out to that facility and I got the information. I went through it. It was about maybe 50 pages. I didn't feel the VA needed all those 50 pages. I went through and I pulled out about 5 or 10 pages of stuff, because all the other information was irrelevant to the knees that I was claiming. Okay. So I wasn't going to submit evidence about, a skin condition, and I'm complaining about my knee, unless the skin condition was, over the knee or something like that. I didn't want the RVSR to have to look through all that stuff and to find stuff that would help them. I pulled out what I felt was relevant to my claim and I submitted it. That's what I did. So you have to make that decision on if you want to do that. Now, if you're doing, like I said, if you're doing the BDD, then you want to submit everything, okay? Because you have to per the regulation, because I'm assuming you're still on active duty, all right? V. Munez asks, is it a study done at the VA-MC in Houston? Here they have an opinion connecting PTSD and obstructive sleep apnea. Hey, I wish you could somehow share that with the group, because I think that's definitely some good information and possibly can help other veterans. Okay, let's see. I'm going through some more questions here. Beverly Knox says, you did a video about DBQs. The one from my CMP does not have that expiration information. Upper right has the forms updated. Is the expiration information placed differently on each DBQ? The information should be same. It should be the same on each DBQ. I don't know, Beverly, you can tell me where you got the DBQs that didn't have a date or a description in the lower left-hand corner. But if they came from the VA, if you download, like I have some I downloaded before, they removed them. They all had expiration dates in the top right-hand corner, and each one in the lower left-hand side actually had the form number, okay? B. Wilson says, my code sheet has everything as static. Should I expect this to continue due to age? Once it's static, unless you go in and an exam shows improvement or something, it should remain static. If you're talking about the age as it pertains to the routine future exams, I think a lot of RVSRs get that M21 reference confused. When we talk about age, the reference states when not to schedule a routine future exam. And one of those bullet comments in that reference is if the veteran is 55 years of age or will be 55 years of age at the time when you're scheduling that routine future, not to schedule it. It doesn't state if the veteran is under 25 years old to schedule the routine future. I think a lot of RVSRs get that confused. So I hope I was able to answer it if that was your question. Corey Smoot. Good evening, Mr. Kimball. Good evening, Corey. What about chronic fatigue syndrome and chronic pain claims? What is your question? Are you thinking, is that a presumptive, or what is your question as it pertains to chronic fatigue and chronic pain claims? Hot Furnace says, I started off with 60% PTSD in 2008 and now 100% PNT for PTSD. Congrats. So do they link the 100% PTSD rating to 2008, or do they use the PNT to the year I became 100%? I'm assuming you're asking the effective date for the PNT. It depends, but they should explain it in that particular rating. So go back to the narrative section of the rating and see what effective date they use. Now, if the effective date is different between 100% because it could be different. So if you were 100% PTSD in 2008 and you didn't get your PNT until, I want to make sure I'm reading it right, 2008. And let's say, for instance, okay, PTSD 100% back in 2008, 100% PTSD back in 2008, and you just receive your PNT this year. Will they go back to 2008? More than likely, no, because they didn't feel that condition was static. So if you came in for an increase for the PTSD, or they gave you a routine future and they deemed that the PTSD was still should be 100%, then they says, okay, we're not going to schedule another routine future. We're going to go ahead and grant the PNT. The PNT will probably be the date facts found that your condition was static, which would be the date of the CMP exam. Without looking at the whole file, I can only assume, using that example, that's why they gave that particular a different date for the PNT. But again, go back and look at Chapter 35, Service Connection in that rating, and they should explain why they gave you that particular effective date. Okay. John says, do you know the best place to get a Nexus letter? Medical doctor, I flew to New York for the last one. No, I don't. I use my own doctors. I just went to them and I told them what I needed. I got tired of going to CMP. The last 2 CMP exams I had, I was like, I'm not going anymore. But I used my own personal doctors. I told them what I needed, and just luckily they were willing to help. So I don't know of any doctors that actually, or you can go in your area and do Nexus statements. They'll say it's Prestige Worldwide Medical Consulting. Yeah, if you find someone, you still want to make sure that information in the Nexus statement is correct, okay? Because if not, then it's not worth the paper that it's printed on. And I hate for you to go out and pay for something and then not know that it's sufficient for rating purposes, okay? See, veteran disability claims, that's untrue. It would be like any other medical evidence, VA branded or not. I don't know what's untrue veterans disability claims. Like I say, I'm just going off of past experience and what RVSRs look at. But again, if you're submitting something, some people think, yeah, it could be good. It's just my opinion and what I've seen work in my claim and what I used to do as a RBSR. Okay. So everybody claim is different. Um, Me personally, submitting a bunch of evidence, I never did it. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do it. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but just understand if you submit 1,000 pages of stuff and it's only one page that's pertinent to what you're claiming, somebody has to look through all that. And again, remember, VA employees own a quota. Help them out. Do your due diligence. Okay. V Real says, will a VA doctor do a DBQ or write independent medical opinion? You have to ask that particular doctor. What I've been, the feedback I've been getting from other veterans that I talk to, some of their primary cares, they do it. And then other primary care said they're not allowed to, but they're not telling the veteran why they're not allowed to. Is there a certain regulation or a certain policy at that particular VA medical center or a directive that came down from the director that they can't do it? They're just saying they can't do it. So some do it. I've heard some do, and then I heard other ones don't. So you would have to ask, be real, you have to ask your primary care or the VA doctor that you're talking about if they're willing to do it. John asked another question. Do they have offices in Maryland? I don't know if you asking me that question or whoever gave the answer to the I guess some medical facility about the nexus statements. Okay. Kenneth says, I had a gallbladder surgery on active duty and I filed for scars and IBS systems and it to be rectum incontinence. Is this normal for them to change it for CMP? I'm not quite understanding your question there, Kenneth. If you could explain a little bit better, I'm going down through the thread. If you could explain a little bit better, it's kind of confusing. So I'm not sure what you're asking with that question. Okay. Comeback Craig says, I agree. It's a DBQ with no expiration date. Problem solved. Okay. Yeah. So again, you just want to be careful with that. When I say sufficient for rating purposes, that includes the expiration date. Okay. You definitely want to verify that. Okay. That goes without saying. I was talking to a vet a couple of weeks ago, and they pay a lot of money for a particular DBQ, and they say, "Hey, I want you to look at it. Let's set it up." And some told me, it was like, man, before I even go through all this, I asked him, I say, what is the date in the top right-hand corner? He said, I don't see it. I'm like, are you sure? And he took a screenshot of it, and it was in the top right-hand corner, and it's expired. So I told him there's no need to look at anything else. According to the M21 reference or the policy, it's insufficient for rating purposes. It's expired. And he was just devastated. And so, because he paid a lot of money for it. And then, I was like, where's the doctor? And the doctor was out of state. And I was like, was it in person? Nope. So it's about, we got to educate each other. So look at, some of these, the thread, some people's feedback, comments and stuff like that. And just see what their experiences are. But also keep in mind, everybody's experience can be a little bit different, okay? Because your claim may be handled at a different regional office. Your CMP examiner could be different. So, you want to keep that in mind, all right? ATX Patriot says, trust but verify. We consider it as evidence, but you will get an exam schedule, such as a delay between being able to comment. Okay. So yeah, like I said, one thing I did, I knew my DBQ was sufficient, and they still scheduled me, and I was like, I wasn't going because I didn't want there to be any conflicting medical evidence. That's a chance you're going to have to take, but you got to be educated on, hey, if they don't schedule it and you feel that DBQ is sufficient, I think that gives you a leg to stand on when you do a high level review. Like I stated earlier, I've been getting feedback from veterans that states that some of them have been submitted and they rated it without scheduling a CMP exam. And I think that's where the consistency is amongst the RVSRs. Okay. Craig says he's right next to me taking a nap. Is that the dog, Craig? All right. Patriot says, Dwayne, is there a way to turn off the slow mode on comments? We reach out, delay as work is slow. Okay. Let me see if I can do that. I don't think I can, Patriot. I do apologize. So I'll just try to get through these a little bit faster. Because I had it set up for slow mo, Patriot, because last time I was getting a lot of questions. So this time I just wanted to make sure I got it set up. I think it was I got it for like 60 seconds or something like that. Okay. Gizo1 question, sir, do they rate bilateral hips separately or together? Trying to get my hips cyst secondary 40% back. If you're it should be broken out. Left hip and right hip should be broken out. Now I've seen RVSRs, if both are rated at 0, they may combine it. But normally I've majority of the time I've seen it where they broke them out. B. Wilson says, I've been waiting since May 13th for 2 CMP and the QTC I was assigned to for exams has closed due to COVID. What recourse do I have? I would reach out to the VA and just ask them, say, hey, can you look in the system and see if the exams have been rescheduled? But surprised if they're closed, but call and just see if they have been rescheduled at a different location. Alex says, what is a CUE claim? A CUE is not an actual claim like a neck or knee condition. A CUE stands for a clear and unmistakable error. I won't go into detail because check my videos. I did a video on a CUE, but basically a CUE is when the VA has made an error on something. Okay. I've seen CUEs where it went good for the vet, and I've seen CUEs where it didn't go so good for the vet. I know when I used to rate, and I shared this in some of my videos, I would get a rating, and this is back when we had paper claim files. I would get a rating, and I would look at this rating, and Patriot, please do not laugh at me, but I get a rating, and I'm like, man, this RVSR has to be the worst RVSR is. What were they thinking? And I'm looking, I'm looking through the file. And I'm like, man, let me go to the rating code sheet and see who did this. And guess what? It was me. I did it. And I'm like, man, then I had to take another 30 minutes to figure out what was I thinking. And 9 times out of 10, if I called an error on myself, it was pretty much due to me rushing, trying to meet my production, meet my quota, rushing, and I just missed something. There's been a few other times I know where I was flat out, I was wrong and somebody else caught it. So it happens. I was human. So I'm pretty sure a lot of RVSRs, they're human as well. So, it happens. A veteran's disability claim says those NLSVP lawyers definitely know what they are doing. Those forms are very much valid, and the VA cannot throw them out. Well, no, they can't throw them out. But again, you got to ask yourself, are they sufficient and actionable for rating purposes? I think that's where the question comes in. Now, I would say this. If I was still rating claims, would I accept a DBQ that didn't have an expiration date or VA form number on it? No, because now I'm putting myself at risk of getting an error from the quality department. Now, unless there has been some type of internal guidance on that, which I don't know about, But if I was still rating, would I use them? No, because I think I would get an error. Now, like I said, I'm thus retired, but things could have changed unless there's a different policy or something like that. Because in M21, it also talks about the authenticity. There's an M21 reference talks about the authenticity of a DBQ. Now, the second question comes if the expiration date is not on there, the VA form number is not in the lower left-hand corner, is that DBQ authentic? So I'm pretty sure different raters look at it differently. You may have one rater say, "Oh yeah, it's good." You may have another rater says that it isn't. You won't know that until you submit it. Okay, so then you may have to fight that fight at that particular time. Hot Furnace says, "Please hit the thumbs up and support the live stream." I definitely appreciate that. Thanks a lot, 100. Robert, you're definitely welcome. VA disability claims comes back and says the VA cannot accept evidence just because they don't like the paper it's on. Well, true that, and what I mean by not sufficient and not going to use or not accept doesn't mean they're going to get it and they're going to send it back. It's not what I'm saying. Now, as it pertains to that particular situation we're talking about, the forms, the only way you're going to know, you're going to send it in and just see what happens. Like I said, if I was still rating when I use it, no, I would probably go ahead and request an exam and use that information. But like I said, it could be an internal policy. Now, if that happens, let's just say they do a proposal to reduce, or you do a hearing or informal conference, then that's the time to ask that question. Hey, I submitted a DBQ. Why didn't you use it? If you have, and another thing, if you have a representative, and my representative did this to me because I was a rater at the time and I was sensitive 7. So I couldn't, when you're sensitive, other VA employees can't see your file at your location, and your claim file is handled in a total different state. So one thing that my representative did that I really liked, if we saw something, they could reach out to or email that VSR or RVSR and ask them the question. And I've talked to a lot of veterans, and I say, well, your representative, did they email the rater when they did that? No. So that's a question I would be asking my representative. My representative, he already knew. If he saw me in the waiting room, he was like, what question do we need to ask? And I had my paperwork. I'm like, hey, they did this, they did that. They scheduled me for an exam. I had a DBQ. It was sufficient. Can you email them and ask them why they scheduled that exam? Is there something missing on this particular DBQ? Is the evidence that I submitted not sufficient? The lawyers or someone that represents you, they can do that. Now, if they do it or not, so you have to make sure you ask that question. Okay. Dale says that VA disability claims is right, but occasionally you get a rater that will throw out the DBQ if outdated, just HLR. If I was still rating and a DBQ was outdated, would I use it? No, because I'm going to get hit with a quality error if they pull that for rating purposes. And then that's going to drop my quality. And now I'm going to be rushing to try to get more claims done so I can get my quality back up. Okay. And that could be the difference between me losing my job if my quality falls. So would I particularly use it? No. But again, there could be some internal policies that will allow RVSRs to do it now. Okay. Come back, Craig says, agreed, DBQs are valid, period. Yeah. If I was still rating, when I use it, if they were outdated, not a chance. Patriot, let's see, the VA accepts all evidence, whether they rate on it is another story altogether. Agree. Again, Patriot, what do you think about an expired DBQ? Is it sufficient for rating purposes? St. Louis says, I wish I knew about these videos from Dwayne and Camellia, to name a few. Such much great information. Thanks. I definitely really appreciate it. And again, guys, I'm bringing you my personal opinion, so everybody's claim is different, but you have to understand there's hundreds of raters, RVSRs, and hundreds of VSRs, and sometimes they interpret policies and references and regulations differently. Should it be that way? No, but everybody's human. Okay, so what you can do is educate yourself on this process to make sure you're doing it right, and and go with it. To make sure it's right, so your claim moves to the next level. Now you can still do, everything right, and they still could schedule an exam or still could go left. But if you're educated, you'll know how to go through that process a little bit better next time around. Okay. The last topic I want to talk to, then I'll spend another 10 or 15 minutes before I close out, going through some questions. Last video on HLR, a lot of veterans are getting this wrong, not asking the right questions. And what I mean by that is HLRs, high-level reviews. Veterans are checking that box for a high-level review. They get a call from the RVSR or the decision review officer, DRO, and they're not asking the right questions. Okay. I can remember when I did my appeal, I had everything laid out. I knew all the ins and outs as it pertains to my claim. Just because you file a high-level review does not mean you're going to get service connected. Okay. You still need to be educated, and especially educated on a high-level review as it pertains to what you're doing. Okay. I have yet to hear veterans, when they get that informal conference, ask someone, are you the person that's going to be making the decision on my high-level review? Which regional office do you work out of? What is that 3-digit code for that regional office? Have you took the time to review my claim for my high-level review? Is there anything that I can do that will help you get me service connected, or not? I don't want to say get me service connected, but is there anything that I can do or anything additional information that you need? And if there's a DBQ involved, okay, if there's a DBQ involved, then next question, what makes that DBQ insufficient? And they may tell you it didn't have an expiration date. It wasn't a VA claim form. They should be able to explain it. Now, I'm not saying that I may agree with that explanation what they give you, but a lot of veterans are not asking those questions when it comes to the high-level review. You can't just get on there and just start talking and talking and talking. Hey, they're on a quota. They're on a quota. When you get that call, you got to know, hey, I submitted an increase for PTSD. I submitted a claim for increase for PTSD. I had a DBQ, the review DBQ. It was not expired. It has a VA form number on it. My doctor completed everything. She stated it was per DSM-5 criteria. It was in person. They stated my prognosis is poor and my condition is now guarded. What on that DBQ is insufficient? That's why I didn't go to a CMP exam. They should be able to answer that question. Your question, okay? But a lot of veterans are not asking that. They'll start talking about, oh, I'm taking medication, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. You got to be specific with those questions. You got to know the scenario of your claim, okay? So if your claim falls under that scenario that I just stated, then those are some possible questions that you want to answer. You want to ask, okay? So that's all I had to talk about tonight, but I'm just going to go through this thread and I'm going to I'm going to answer a few questions. We're going to do about 15 minutes. Last month was like 2.5 hours, but definitely good conversation. But I want to make sure I go through here and look at these particular questions. Veterans disability claims. Thanks, St. Louis. Dwayne has great info as well. All right. I appreciate it. Veterans disability claims. I'm assuming that you work with veterans as well. So I'm glad to see that you're on here and supporting me. Please reach out. I'd like to support your channel as well. And by all means, if I say something that you disagree with, let me know and let's talk about it. because we're all veterans, and that's what we're here to do. We're here to educate each other. So if something may have changed, or I didn't see it, just like I talked about the VA's the CMP, the VA CMP exams offices, they were reopening after COVID. Then Stars and Stripes came out with an article and said that they're no longer doing CMP exams at the VA. They're only outsourcing it. If that's changed, hey, if somebody had a CMP exam at a particular regional office, let me know. But there are certain conditions that private contractors cannot do, exclusions. And I put that in that particular video. I listed what those exclusions are. Okay. But, hey, if I say something and we disagree, hey, let me know and we could talk about it, because we learn from each other. Okay. B. Wilson says, found in my C file a DBQ in 2017 for a knee increase where the medical doctor wrote more about my back problems than the knee. Would this still be an open claim since the rater did not follow up? Again, that's kind of a hard question, because, one, you have to look at everything that's in there. Then you have to kind of figure out, one, what is the RVSR looking at, and then put all that information together. So it's kind of hard to say. I wish I could give you a better answer, but I don't know. Patriot says, you should come back, Craig, as I rate claims. Hey, there you go. He said it, not me. Said he rate claims. So yeah. Jesse says, got a question. I know the appeal is a year, but what if I got a percentage and never got paid for it? I just got 90% this year after trying for 8 years. When you get a rating decision, there's two things that should come in that packet. On the top, it'll have the notification letter. That's what the VSR does. And normally you'll see the payout. It'll give you the payout. Like if you have dependents, it'll give you, if it's a stage rating where it says, okay, this particular year you were 30%, we paid you for this much, minus if you had severance pay, or if we're paying you for dependents, then on this particular date, we granted 50%. And it's effective this day. If a dependent falls off like 10 years from now, once they turn 18, it'll show the payout for that particular, that year without that particular dependent. So go back and look at that notification letter. Hey, thanks. I think that's B. Wilson. Hey, I appreciate the donation. Thank you. So look at the notification letter, and it should tell you that payout. And then after that notification letter, you'll see the rating decision. And the rating decision starts when you see the VA seal at the top. And then it'll have like the date. It'll have, I think I did a video where I did like a mock one. It'll have the date. It'll have the seal, the date, and then it'll give like a brief summary of your military service. And then it'll talk about if you got service connected for a particular condition, and then it'll go into the reasons and decisions. Okay. John says, ATX, do you rate high level reviews? Okay. I'm not a dro, only dros do high level reviews. Okay. Patriot, do they have, I know right before I left, they were asking RVSRs to come and do and work, almost said appeals, but to work in DROC. Do they have RVSRs working in DROC that does the high level reviews? Just curious. I know right before I left, they were asking people to do that, asking raters to do that. And merch is going viral. Okay. Jay says, when considering SMCs, if a veteran at 100% PAT with one schedule at 70, can multiple schedule whether connected or secondary for the back compute up to 100 to fall into the SMC category? Wow. Jay, I'm sorry, but I'm not really understanding that question. I did a video on SMCs, SMCK, SMCS, and SMCL. SMCS is housebound, SMCL is aid in attendance. And I list the 38 CFRs as it pertains to, should be each SMC. Okay. But you can go to the M21 and it'll give you a breakdown of what the qualifications are for each SMC. Okay, I had a question. Somebody sent me a question on Facebook about SMCT, and man, I had to go back. And Patriot, he may have one of these, but this is my SMC training manual, and these are all SMCs. So you can see I have them all tabbed: SMCK, LMN, OP, all the criteria in here. The 38 CFRs. I doubt if you can see that because of the light, but I still use this. It's a good reference. But SMCs are difficult, especially when you get up into half step, the full step. Man, it's like studying for a physics level 4 test or something like that. But I don't know if it's gotten better, but yeah, check out that video as it pertains to the SMCs there. If you look in the description section, you'll see some 38 CFRs. I think I added some M21 manual references about the qualifications for SMCs. Okay. Increases a difficult ball game. Come back, Craig says increases a difficult ball game altogether. I always think a claim for increase is possibly the easiest, and this is the reason why. You've already crossed that hurdle to get service connected for it. So the next thing is knowing, and I mentioned that summary breakdown letter, knowing what the 4-digit criteria is. And Patriot is going to laugh at me, but yeah, Patriot, I still got mine. I was working from home and I still got it. So, and the reason why it's easy, that reason why I feel that it's easy is because you can go to the rating scheduler. Okay. You can go to VA's website. Once you get that summary breakdown letter, you get that 4-digit code, then you know what's the criteria for the next hire. Now, you can also look in the rating decision. A lot of veterans don't read that rating decision entirely. They're supposed to tell you the next hire. And sometimes they'll even go higher than that. Okay. But the 4-digit code, 4-digit diagnostic code, you can go to the rating schedule online and look at the criteria for the next hire evaluation. So if you meet it, then you already know you meet it. So when you go to the exam, you're armed with that information. Okay. So even now, I think the increases are a lot easier. Even when people say, hey, I want to do an increase in my service connected sleep apnea. Okay. Where are you at right now? 50%. So my nurse at my local doctor's office told me I can get 60. So I go right, to the rating schedule. Mine is old, but I do go online. I have it saved in my favorites to see if they change that criteria. Okay. It could have, but always double check. So I always tell veterans to make sure they want to check that. Okay. A few more questions here. Let's see. I'm sorry I'm going behind, but I just want to make sure I catch as many questions as I can. Stefan says, I have my annual checkup at the end of the month. I'm going to request that the NP list all my symptoms and diagnosis with a code. Tired of the VA doctors have blanking their job. I felt that way too. And like I said, and even I shared in some other videos, I just stopped going to CNP exams and started getting a lot of my medical evidence from private doctors. He all says, my PTSD is too ham. I had to hire an attorney, too much for me to handle and keep up with. Keep in mind, PTSD, once you understand it, it's not that hard. In my monthly training, I talk about PTSD stressors, combat, and non-combat. Stressors have to be verified. Again, stressors have to be verified. So if you're claiming, let's give you some examples of some easy stressors. Okay. You served in Iraq. On your DD-214, it shows service in Iraq from this date to this date. If you claim it, PTSD due to fear of hostile military terrorist activity. They can look at the DD-214. They can verify that stressor, okay? Combat stressor. If you have a combat medal, Purple Heart, you're a Vietnam vet, claiming PTSD, I was awarded the Purple Heart, they concede it, you get an exam, okay? Things that's hard to confirm. I almost stepped on a landmine. How can that be verified? You can write a lace, you have a buddy statement, but it still needs to be confirmed. Anybody can write a buddy statement for somebody. So they're looking for concrete evidence. If you're in the Navy and you working on an aircraft carrier and an aircraft came in, you knew the pilot crashed and the pilot died, they can look at those deck logs and see if that soldier was deceased, and they can confirm that stress. Okay. I saw somebody get beat up, but I didn't know who they were. How can that be confirmed? Let's say you were assaulted, you were attacked, and you did a police report. You have a copy of that police report. That's a confirmed stressor. So once you understand PTSD, stressors, combat, non-combat, combat medals, trust me, it gets a lot easier. Then you can move on to the criteria as it pertains to mental conditions in the rating schedule. What is total and social? I'm sorry, not total, but what is occupational and social impairment? What are the different symptoms do they look for under the 0%, 10%, 30%, 50%, 70%, 100% for mental conditions? Okay. VA disability claims there's a distinct difference in what the agency will accept and what the BVA will entertain. The BVA will accept all evidence and even telehealth DBQs. If the VA rejects your DBQ appeal to BVA, and I agree. The BVA, I think they have a little bit more leeway, whereas more leeway than RVSRs. So most definitely, yeah, keep that in mind. Just talked to someone today, and they actually had a DBQ, and it's kind of sad story, and they got denied at BVA. So again, just make sure you have everything buttoned up. But I think BVA, the judges, they have a little bit more leeway than the RVSRs and DROs. But again, you still want to make sure all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. Okay. B. Wilson says, I'm running into CMP exams where a DBQ is requested. If the veteran requests a medical opinion on items within the DBQ and the medical doctor is qualified, are they required to do so? I'm assuming you're talking about private doctors. Private doctors are private doctors. They're not required to do anything for the VA. But again, just to give you an example, when I went in, saw my private doctors, I told them exactly what I needed. And one doctor is like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that means. So I had to give them an example of one. And they were, oh, okay, I get it. And they were able to provide a medical opinion for me. Jesse says, I also submitted my own paperwork. Comeback Douglas, actionable and sufficient. Bingo. And in that video that I did, I actually listed the M21 reference where it actually used that word, actionable and sufficient. Okay. Yeah, comeback credit, BVA is an entirely different ball game. Yeah, I've seen claims where they couldn't be granted at the RVSR level, but they were granted at the BVA level. But again, you definitely want to, if you're going to BVA, you get to that point, you want to make sure you got everything buttoned up tight. Dale says, is the M21-1 strict on raters being able to subjectively interpret the fidelity of Nexus letters? I would have to go back and look as it pertains to, I don't think there's anything, and I could be wrong, in the M21 that states Nexus letters, but there is verbiage as it pertains to evidence, private evidence. Okay. But I would have to go back and do the research on that. I think the M21-1 has a lot of gray areas. And that's where the inconsistency comes in, as you have one RVSR interpreted one way and another RVSR interpreted a different way. But it should be on the same, they should be on the same page, but that's not always the case. Veterans disability claims, right? Come back, Craig. That's because you have lawyers dealing with things. The CVAC is even better because a lot of times the VA will settle the claim. More veterans should take their case to CVAC. I think the highest level I had to go to was the appeals, and I talked about my appeal experience. I don't think that most claims should even get to a high level review / appeals or even BVA. Okay. That's just my personal opinion. But I always tell vets, you got to be educated. If you have a representative doing everything for you, which they can do, and you go to that exam and you're not educated on, if you're claiming diabetes and you're going in for an increase, or, you're claiming diabetes and it hasn't been confirmed by an A1C test, things of that nature, you have to know that stuff. Okay. Because nobody is going to give your claim the due diligence or the due process it deserves more than you. Okay. So when I used to talk to my representative, I wasn't asking the questions. I was telling him, hey, they did this. They should have done this. This is what we need to do. Let's do it. Okay. And it worked. So you just have to keep in mind, like I said, when I went in, everything that I appealed, I won first time because it was clear cut. So it's not what you say, it's what you can prove. And I can go through my claim file, and I can look at certain documents and I can still remember why I filled out that particular document. And a lot of this stuff is 10 years old. Okay. So you have to become educated on your own claim as well and the process. And trust me, it may sound like it's hard. It's hard and frustrating because a lot of people don't get educated. But once you get educated and you see something happen, or they don't, the VA doesn't do something that they have listed in the 38 CFR, the M21, now you know how to combat that. All right. B. Wilson, hey, I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate the support. Thank you. Now, veterans disability claims. I did all of them. Jesse says, I did all of them independently. V-Rail, I was just denied secondary depression from migraines and secondary sciatica from my lower back. I was denied rather quick. Could it be because I didn't submit any evidence? Again, ask, did they give you a C&P exam? And if they gave you a C&P exam, compensation pension exam, that means the doctor gave a negative opinion. So the next question is, do you have a copy of that C&P exam? Because that's the only way you'll know, unless the rater put the medical opinion and rationale in the rating. Some do, some don't. I don't think it's a requirement unless they changed it. But if you have that, then you'll know why they said no. Okay. And if the rationale was because, there's no current diagnosis listed anywhere, then if you had an actual diagnosis, from a private physician, wherever, that you could have submitted, if you had a private or actual diagnosis that you could have submitted it, that could have been the difference of it. But you won't know why the reasoning was why that C&P examiner gave that negative opinion. If the rationale is not in the rating, then it'll be in the C&P exam. So you have to get a copy of that. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Court of CVAC. I just saw that CVAC, Court of Veterans Appeals. And no, you don't want to avoid the BVA if you keep getting denied. But again, yeah, you don't have to avoid them. But I think you have to understand why you're denied. That's, when I talk to veterans that don't know why they were denied, they they get denied and they feel that, oh, I should have been service connected, so I'm going to do a high level review. And then they say they got denied on high level review, and they send me the information. I look at it, and I'm like, well, they denied you because it doesn't fit under one of the 5 ways of service connection. There's no link. So, for example, a veteran is claiming, let's say, sleep apnea on a direct basis. What is the criteria to get service connected on a direct basis? You have to show injury in service, treatment, complaint, or diagnosis, and have a current diagnosis. Okay. And then you get a C&P exam, then that doctor will provide a medical opinion if it's outside of 1 year from service. Okay. So definitely keep that in mind. But this particular veteran that condition they were claiming didn't fall under one of the 5 ways of service connection. It wasn't a pre-service aggravation. It wasn't direct. It wasn't an increase. It wasn't secondary. It wasn't presumptive. So they got the high level review and they denied them, and they showed it to me. I'm like, this is why they denied it. And it was clear. Okay. So again, whatever you're claiming, you got to figure out how you're claiming it under one of the 5 ways of service connection. Let's see. Hey, veterans disability claims. Hey, I appreciate it. Reach out to me, connect. I would love to speak with you. Definitely thank you for the donation and the support that you give me on my YouTube channel. Patriot, he gave a M21 reference. Examination requiring claims folder review. There it is. You know what? I'm going to copy that because I want to research it tonight. Okay. So ATX Patriot, he gives an M21 reference or policy, examinations requiring claims folder review. Very important MR to know. Patriot, thank you for sharing that. If you all don't see it, what I'll do, I'll copy it and I'll put it down here. So it'll come up under my name in the chat. Definitely go and do that research. Okay. So that policy is telling you examinations requiring claims folder review. All right. Dale says CVAC just remanded back to the RO Yippee for a 5-year screw up on effective date. Man, I tell you, when they remand, whew, I do not like that word. It doesn't, it just, remand. Thanks again to everybody for the donations. ATX age 55 unless mandated by DCVA will not order an RFE. Also, if the RFE that the RVSR is scheduling, if the veteran is 55, then they're still not supposed to schedule it as well. 100% right about CBAC Craig. Gulf War exams for chronic pain and chronic fatigue syndrome. Hopefully you'll have Southwest Asia service. Also, look at your DD-214. A lot of the newer DD-214 shows the dates of service in Afghanistan and Iraq, and sometimes it will say Southwest Asia. All right. Vincent says obstructive sleep apnea and PTSD among OEF, OIF veterans. Peter J. Colvin, PhD, Manson, and Sonia B. Norman. Article information. Hey, Vincent, I'm sorry. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Can you, that article that you're mentioning, can you put that in the chat for everyone? If it's talking about sleep apnea secondary to PTSD, if you could put that in the chat for everyone. If you know the name of that, I definitely appreciate it. Ray says, at Patriot, what do you mean by the acronym MR? I think he's talking about the manual reference, if I'm not mistaken, Ray. Yeah. Just going through. I'm going to do about another 5 minutes, guys, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to shut it down. Raymond, the MR is a manual reference. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind on that. Veterans disability claims. If the agency, radios or droves didn't screw so much up, vets wouldn't have to worry about BVA or CVCs. It's actually a pretty fast process. The VBA is a BVA, not so much. I'm an accredited claims agent. Also, they just came out with, I saw an email in a newsletter from the VA saying that now they're doing video conferences for BVA. I don't know if that'll make it faster, but they are doing those. But veterans disability claims. The question I got for you is: I know that in the past that claims agents, lawyers, VSO organizations had 48 hours to review the rating decision to make sure it was correct. Now, when I used to rate, there were certain VSOs that actually took the time, sat down, went through it to make sure that that rating was correct. I used to have VSOs come back to my desk and say, "Hey, Dwayne, you gave an effective date of this date, or you gave an evaluation of this. I'm not really in agreement with it. Can you explain?" And I'll look at it and I'll go through explaining. Does the VA give claims agents, VSOs, and lawyers, do you all still have 2 hours to sign off on that rating code sheet saying that you agree with that decision? Because I've seen some VSOs just pencil whip it, saying it was good and it actually wasn't good. So I was just curious. I know right before I left the VA, they asked permission to some VSO organizations if they could waive that 48 hours and go ahead and get the decision to the vet, which I really disagreed with, because that was time for that particular representative to catch an error if there was one. So I was just curious about that. Best advice: quick doctor shopping. We know when you do that and it's frowned upon. All right. Okay, I hear you. That is the best advice I've seen here yet, ATX. Yeah, like I said earlier, I just went to my private doctor to say, "Hey, this is what I need. Can you help me or can't you help me?" Okay. And they were all willing to do it. I know some doctors, private physicians say they can't. And if somebody says that they can't do it, just say, "Hey, is that a policy or you just don't want to do it?" Call them out. Ask them. Dale says people try to get a nexus when they only have the VA doctors, which do not do nexus letters. So, and I can get why veterans go around to different doctors, because it gets frustrating when you go to the VA and they don't want to do it. And one thing I learned about my primary care, he was rushing me one day. I was in for an exam, and I was like, "Why are you rushing?" I'm like, "You act like you late for lunch or something?" He was like, "Oh, we only got a certain amount of time to see his vet." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So from now on, every time I know I have an appointment coming up with him, I go in My Healthy Vet, I email him, and I talk about some things that we want to discuss at the exam so we can go through it. So he's not rushing. And he actually thanked me for doing that. Not saying that you have to. That's just something that I did because I felt that he was rushing me through one of my exams. And I'm like, wait a minute. I got some stuff I want to talk about, Second City CPR says, my VA doc included witness statements from my family and medical records. Will the rater take those into consideration as well? They're supposed to take all evidence that's submitted into consideration. Okay. Now, if it helps you get service connected or not, that's a different story. Ray says, exactly, ATX and comeback cred. It's no mystery who the hired guns are, RVSRs. Now, what's up, hired guns? Shellback says, ask a wall to do a DBQ. That's a VA doctor. I asked my doctor that one time. I was already maxed out, but I was just curious. And he told me, the director of the hospital told them, do not do any DBQs, refer the veteran to the CMP office or the regional office. Okay. So some VA medical centers were telling doctors not to do it. Now, I know at the Tampa VA Medical Center, and if anybody's in Tampa, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if any other VA medical centers ever did this, or even if Tampa does this. They actually had a DBQ office. And this was maybe back in 2000, 2015, maybe 15, 16, where veterans could go and they had doctors in this office called a DBQ office, and those doctors completed DBQs. Okay. And I think they did up to 3 DBQs. I don't know if they still do that. I don't know if other regional offices, I'm sorry, not regional offices, but other VA medical centers had similar offices. I don't even know if Tampa still does it. I'm pretty sure during the COVID-19, they closed it if they were still doing it, but I don't know before COVID if they were still doing it or not. But a lot of veterans had, a lot of good feedback about that, and some of it wasn't so good. But yeah. Patriot says there's no policy regarding VA PCP providers doing nexus letters. However, most don't want to muddy their hands with that. Totally agree. Like I said, I asked my PCP primary care provider. He just said they had a directive from the director of the VA medical center not to do them. Let's see. I'm just going through here, guys. VA disability claims, veterans VA disability claims, CMP exams, and nexus letter assistance. Be sure you get the right one. There's another page that popped up with the same name and looks weird. Yeah, I agree with that. Just because someone's giving you some information, you're paying for it, just make sure that it translates over to the VA and what you're trying to do. Okay. VDC, Comeback Douglas says, VDC, are you in Illinois? North Carolina, North Kakalaki. Okay. B. Wilson, what happens when you are forced to the radiation exposure option? We'll have to talk about that off-site, offline. That's more a little bit in depth as it pertains to radiation. You don't see a lot of those claims, but I would have to go through the 38 CFR and the M21 to see if anything changed. So I don't want to, jump off the boat and just jump into something that's totally different. And, always keep in mind, these regulations and policies, the M21, like I said earlier, it changes a lot. So I'm in there at least, 7, 8 times a week looking at stuff. Okay. Especially if I'm doing a video about it. All right. Info of this. Okay. Veterans Disability Claims gave their contact information. Info at veteransdisabilityclaims.com. All right. Let's see. I don't know if it should pop up now. Okay. There you go. Patriot says 48 hours VSO review is more or less not followed at the moment. Regional offices don't want claims getting hung up in the pipeline. And I understand that, but man, that's a time to hold a lot of representatives' feet to the fire, because if you find an error in that rating, then I would be holding my representative accountable, my lawyer or claims agent or whoever. I would be holding them accountable if they're sitting there representing you and they're pencil whipping that rating code sheet saying that they reviewed it when they didn't. A lot of errors can be found, and that's the time that representative could reach out to the RVSR and say, hey, I think you missed this or missed that, and they can correct it, okay, before it even gets to the vet, and then the vet don't have to file a high level review, go to BVA or CVAC or DCE or all that other stuff, okay? Camp Lejeune area, okay, all right. Somebody come back, Douglas, okay. Raymond Lee, can I get my code sheet from VSO? You didn't hear from me. You can ask. You can ask some VSOs. I don't think they're supposed to give it to you, but you can ask. Majority of information that's on the rating code sheet is on the summary breakdown letter. Ask them and just see. I don't think there's anything, if you looked at the screen and you wrote down the diagnosis, the percentage, the diagnostic code, and the percentage and effective date. That's one thing that the summary letter will not give you is the effective date. Now, let's just say on the rating code sheet, it'll show you if you were 20% for the back, effective this date, and then you came in for an increase, you went to 40%, it'll show the 40% plus the effective date for that 40%. And if also the rating code sheet will show you if you have any routine future exams as well. Okay, ATX Patriot says at Raymond Lee, your VSO can get you a copy of your code sheet. I know some VSOs were saying that they couldn't do it, but again, my VSO at the time, he gave me a copy of mine. I just asked a question, but I knew some of my coworkers, they had different representatives, and they went to their office and they said that they couldn't. So I think it possibly just depends on the VSO. Okay. Do you and radar exposure? Thank you so much, Raymond Lee said. Thank you so much. If I don't have my any schedule for rewrites, does that mean all my disabilities are static? Yeah. So yeah, if you don't see RFE or date somewhere on that code sheet for a routine future exam, then that means your conditions are static. Stephen says, remember to thumbs up. Yeah, hey, give me a thumbs up. I definitely appreciate it. Okay, so the last comment is, let's see, Patriot says the VSO represents you. If they refuse to give you the code sheet, find a new VSO. Like I said, I had coworkers that their VSO wouldn't give them a copy of the code sheet. They were like, "Man, who's your representative?" And I would tell them, and they would go and switch, and they would do it. But the representative is good for some things, in my opinion. But still, you definitely you want to keep, build your own claim folder. When you get a copy of something, when you get something from the VA, you want to keep it in your claim folder. And when you send stuff to the VA, you want to make a copy of it. Okay. So let's see. One more comment or question here, guys, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you. Come back, Craig. Share that 100%. Buy that man coffee. Come back, Douglas says, join the club. I said, hey, okay. All right. Hey, so, I really appreciate everybody taking the time. We're going to go ahead and shut it down, but I really appreciate everybody taking the time out of the evening. Let me know let me know what you think about the live stream. And again, we all as vets, we may disagree about certain things as it pertains to the process because we probably went through the process at different times. I think, if you got a CMP examiner, that definitely plays a role in it. The particular rater that you get, that definitely plays a role in it. When I was rating, I always would try to give the veteran the benefit of the doubt, but not always I could do that, but again, just remember that the VA employees, for the most part, majority of them, they do a good job. So Patriot, I appreciate what you do, brother. I've been there, man. Quotas, getting those evaluations, every 2 weeks, going into the system. I can't remember what that system, but you could go in and see if they pull how many ratings that they pull for the month. And I was always glad if they pull 5 and all 5 was good. I was like, man, I can get on to the next month. It felt like a rat race every day. But I definitely appreciate what you do. So I always try to tell veterans, hey, make it easy on these VSRs and RVSRs. Get educated, do your due diligence, do your research, get your paperwork together, know what you're submitting, because again, they're on quotas and they're going through these claims 100 miles a minute. Okay. So you definitely, you want to help out and give them a break. LJ, you're late, but I'll take this question. Can you find future exams on e-benefits? I don't think that they are on e-benefits. You have to get on there and look, but definitely if you get a copy of that rating code sheet, she'll be on there. Now, another place that you can find it is actually in the rating decision and in the routine future video that I did. I talk about it. So in the narrative section, normally at the bottom, if they schedule a routine future, there's a sentence at the bottom, and it'll start out as, since there's a likelihood of improvement. If you see that statement that starts with that, since there's a likelihood of improvement, that means for that particular condition, you have a routine future exam. So definitely go look at that the video I did on RFEs, and it'll explain a little bit more in detail. St. Luke, great job. Hey, I appreciate it. Let's see, Dwayne, great job. Hey, Ray, I appreciate it. I know we'll be we'll be talking soon. Ray, I did. If you don't mind me saying this, but I did a presentation for some naval reserves this past weekend. It went really well. Raymond, he's a certified public accountant. He has a YouTube channel, Raymond Blackman, the certified public accountant. Definitely go to his channel because he gives a lot of information on the PPE and I think PPL loans that are going on, the stipends and stuff like that. He does videos on fraud. And so the presentation that I did for them, he posted it on his YouTube channel. So definitely go and check him out. I know Comeback Craig, he does a lot of live streams. So even the other, Comeback Craig and every, other Patriot, veterans disability claims. Hey, I appreciate what you guys do because, we have something in common. We're trying to educate veterans. We're veterans ourselves and we're trying to educate each other. So definitely, keep up the good work. And, thanks again for coming and supporting my channel tonight. Let's see. I think that's it. Thanks for some great information. Okay. DU has a long half-life, just paying it forward. Okay. All right. So yeah, guys. So just, I'm going and close it, but wrap it up. But again, next month, I'm not going to do a live stream. I'm going to do, a contest. Okay. There's going to be some questions. You're going to have to answer them. So definitely look at some of my videos because that's where I'm going to take the questions from. And it's either going to be I'm going to list it on my website, which I'm going to put my website in here for you guys. KMB89. Okay. It's not there now, but be on the lookout for it. And as I do videos, I'll put it in the description section. So please click the show more under all my videos. You'll see a lot of additional information. Okay. So, and I'll be talking about it, but I'll do it maybe like the second week of December, week before the holidays or something. And I'll give a prize. I'm not going to say what their prize is, but I'm going to leave it open to as many people as that want to come in and, just do it. And then we'll take some questions and I use a program called freeconferencecall.com. So I do it through there. So we can actually, we can talk as well. It won't be, I will take some questions, but it'll be more so just a contest. So I want to test your knowledge to see what information you've learned about the VA claims process. Okay. One more. Yiko says, Dwayne, can you still be in the reserves if you receive 100% PNT? I don't see why you shouldn't. I will give a minute for Ray Blackman to respond to that. I know during the session I did with their unit over this weekend, he did mention that. So Ray, if you could, he used some type of terminology. I know it was through the Navy. Okay, he said, yes, you can. Yeah. So I know that some people think that, maybe some units may frown upon it, but yeah, Ray said, yes, you can. All right. So, hey, again, I will go ahead and close out, guys. Thank you for your service. Thank you for allowing me to share my information as it pertains to the VA disability compensation claims process. Like I said, next month I won't be going live, but the following month, January, I'll be going live, and I'll just be sharing, things that I see, feedback that I get from veterans. And again, just remember, we all can disagree. I think our claims probably happen at different times. We had different examiners, but that's what we're here to do, to educate each other, to make it less frustrating for the veterans that haven't become 100% PNT to get them there if they so true, if they deserve it. Okay. So with that being said, thank you for joining this live stream. I can't say like, subscribe, or notification because it's a live stream, but feel free to leave me additional comments. Definitely go back and look at my other videos. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.